Camera for Cam's Mortgage Minute on Thursday, July the 11th. Hey, with the real estate rules and all the mortgage rules we talk about constantly changing and lots going on, rent to own seems to be a much touted and talked about topic. And at the end of the day, there's some things you definitely need to be aware of if you're going to enter into such an enterprise. And the number one thing and the number one problem rent to owns face a lot, and that's a common denominator, is when folks enter into agreements informally. Basically, they don't have anything in writing, or well, in writing it's pretty weak. The bottom line is if you're going to enter into such an agreement, make sure you get your good legal due diligence done. Make sure you ask the questions on both sides, whether you be the investor seller, or you be the buyer purchaser. You got to make sure that you understand the terms of the agreement so everything is clear and spelled out. Another challenge that I've seen with rent-own agreements that have been coming across, or folks who've contacted me with such situations, is the market valuation. That's the big struggle in all these things, because a lot of times with these rent-own scenarios, a predetermined price is set out. And when the price was set out, let's say 2 years, 3 years, 5 years ago, the market wasn't where it is today. So that can definitely have a big impact. And if your plan was to buy this place at a prescribed dollar, and unfortunately the market's gone down, well, that's going to put you in a tough spot. So you got to make sure that there's some kind of contingency or some kind of plan that the market value is based on. And that's the real struggle with these things. Another thing that does happen to occur once in a while is definitely credit. Folks who enter these situations usually have challenging credit or poor credit, and that's the reason they got into it in the first place, and they're hoping that their credit will rebuild. However, sometimes they don't take the necessary steps during the rent-own process to rebuild that credit, and they're not any further ahead when the maturity date hits and suddenly they're in a jam and can't qualify. So you got to be aware of all of these pitfalls and all of these things going in, and you really make sure, like I said, do your due diligence, get a legal opinion, make sure a lawyer reviews the documents, no matter which side of the fence you're on this. As far as if you're a purchaser, make sure that you can actually qualify for a mortgage later, that there's a plan in place. I mean, nobody can tell you exactly what's going to happen in the future. Look at all the changes that have happened in the mortgage world over the last 4 or 5 years. However, there are certain fundamentals that can be put in place, at least some prediction can be done to make sure there is the hope of you qualifying later. And as a seller, you got to make sure that that exit is there for you, that the person entering into this rent-own is not going to end up in a horrible experience, and everybody isn't going to be soured by it, and this is going to turn out to be a positive one. I have encountered some positive rent-own situations where folks have approached me and they've all worked out well. And they entered into it years ago, and they came to us for the mortgage, and it was all good. However, like I said, the biggest number one thing is don't scrimp on getting the advice. Get the proper counseling. And again, if you're a purchaser who's is contemplating entering into one of these agreements, don't hesitate. Give us a shout at the Auxilium team. We're always ready, willing, and able to help. We can give you kind of the guidance of what you're going to need to be looking at for the future to make sure you do qualify. And if you're a seller who's contemplating entering into an agreement with someone, you need a mortgage broker as well, so you got to make sure that that prospective purchaser is, has got some merit, has got a plan, and everything else is going to be sound. We can only do the, basically the due diligence up front. None of us can predict the future. However, with some proper due diligence and some thorough review of the process, we can at least ensure we have a much better chance for success. Anyway, hopefully you enjoy the rest of your day, and I look forward to chatting with you tomorrow. And it's been Cam for Cam's Mortgage Minute. And again, once again, if you do need anything mortgage-wise, give us a shout at the Auxilium team.